but I think there are so many um, big inefficiencies in the system of food that you actually, with AI, it's a so I think it's from the beginning. One is growing food. So I've been traveling in emerging markets. I've actually recently been in an NGO, volunteered in an NGO with a friend in Tanzania. Uh, some of these places are really like, you could grow anything because
Yeah.
they're like, yeah, on the equator and stuff like that,
Yeah.
that it's really good. But they are actually growing poorly nutrient and
Hmm.
actually
Hmm.
very low margin stuff just because that's the only things they know how to grow. These are things that with AI are very easy to build and I think can have a huge impact on our daily diet. So, again, it's like very don't need to do the impossible and the crazy, just a little bit better, more varied, more balanced, a system that actually knows you, remembers what you ate, knows actually what's good and bad, knows some good cooking tips that will make you will actually eat healthier, better food. So I am a huge, huge, huge fan of technological progress, and I think that sure, we need to do it in a responsible way, but the control should be on the application, not on the technology.
Welcome to Are You Human podcast. On this episode, you'll hear a conversation I have with Yariv Adan. Yariv began his career as a software engineer in Israel in late 90s. He worked as both an engineer and engineering manager at several startups until 2007, where he transitioned to product management at Google. There, he was part of the founding teams for multiple strategic areas, such as Google Assistant and Google Lens. He spent 7 years working on cutting-edge technology, mainly AI consumer applications, before moving to Google Cloud, where he led product for conversational AI and, starting in 2022, applied Gen AI. After 17 years at Google, Yariv recently left the company to start his investment fund specializing in early-stage AI startups, the Future Fund. He is also actively involved in projects related to AI art and AI augmented food. We talk all about human AI collaboration, threats, opportunities, his early-stage VC fund, and so much more. I really enjoyed our conversation and I was really looking forward to it. So now you will hear it and I hope you will enjoy it. Thanks.
Are you human?
Hello, Yariv. Thank you so much for finding time to do this.
Hi, thank you for inviting me. Yeah, it's going to be a pleasure, I'm sure.
Yeah, and I'm sure you will have a lot of things to share off with your new venture, Future Fund. I noticed, but I guess for people who just found out about you, it would be great to understand how you arrived to managing and starting an AI-focused investment fund. I know that you've started your career as a software engineer in Israel, and then you moved to work on some big things in Google. And now you went back to the board and you took all the risk and you started your own thing. How did it all happen?
The path.
The path.
Yeah. I think I always liked starting new things. I had a startup actually in the third year of university, and then I worked with a bunch of startups. When I moved to Google, I found myself again and again either starting or joining very early things. So started the privacy in 2007 or 8. Joined the very early small team of emerging markets in 2009, like always a little bit too early. And then in 2015, joined a small team that back then started what became Google Assistant. And also we started what became Google Lens. And I think that got me excited about AI. I actually started because I got excited about AI. Um, and ran really a good run at Google, learned a ton. And the last 3 years we joined Google Cloud Conversational AI to lead that. And then we basically kind of started the Gen AI, applied Gen AI about 2 years. And after 17 years at Google, and I'm also turning 50 this year, I thought, it's a long
Congrats.
time. And I was actually thinking what to do. I had a bunch of AI related initiatives in the art space, in the food space. But sometime last year, I met with some old friends that I actually knew from Google from the early days. And we said, wouldn't it be great to actually start together a fund that invests in early stage AI? Um, we actually talked about starting a fund multiple times in the last decade. We thought it's like a natural next step of scaling ourselves. At Google, so I led product and strategy for teams, and gradually these teams and scopes grow. And here it's kind of the same thing, just like, you invest and you support, you don't actually manage and deal with the day to day, although we do see ourselves as hands-on investors and we are trying to be involved. Um, so it was like, kind of a natural step and a very fun one, right? So I'm actually doing it with people that I know for a very long time. And we decided to do it because all of us have a lot of experience in AI in the real world, and suddenly there seems to be like this very supportive tailwind and a huge wave that we're basically kind of riding on it. And we are a bit of a unique creature in the investment space, especially in Europe, because of our backgrounds. The other people also have extensive backgrounds in building companies, doing AI in the academia. So it's very it's fun. I don't see it as risky in any way.
Have you ever have you done investing before that, or that's a jump into deep water?
So the four, or maybe soon the five of us have been doing angel investing, and actually also sometimes have been investing, as two or threes between ourselves. So I think like we have about 30 investments that we did as angel investors, and specifically mostly in the AI space. But investing as a team, we started last year. Yeah.
And where do you seek capital from? Is it Europe or US or mix?
We were starting to raise a fund last year, and then we said, okay, before actually we raise, let's do it from our own capital and from our closed network. We wanted to create some track record from that, and also see, after a long time not working together, just to see that
Of
we
course.
actually enjoy working
if you match,
together.
exactly.
Yeah, so we started like Q4, and that's actually going super, super well. We're having a lot of fun.
Nice.
We already made, I think we're like in the seventh or eighth investment, and 9 and 10 are already we're in final stages of this. So we will hopefully raise capital this year. So we started with thinking, hey, our focus should be in Europe, just because we thought that's where the biggest gap for early stage money that has deep understanding of the domain and can support the founders. But we actually found out that our profile appeals to also companies outside. So definitely, we have companies coming from Israel. We actually have quite a few that came through the Google network, mostly from the Valley in California. And having worked 17 years at Google, most of them with California and managing teams globally, I don't see a real reason why to limit ourselves to a specific region. So at the moment we're global, but definitely we are looking at how can we make Europe an advantage as opposed our presence in Europe a strength and advantage and differentiator as opposed to a kind of a limitation, because clearly a lot of stuff is happening in San Francisco, and there are definitely advantages for some regional focus. First, there is a ton of great talent here, especially in the top academia institutions. And getting to them early from the States is not easy, and they often, they're not everywhere in mature. And one of our partners is a professor in ETH, so we're actually naturally connected to these universities, working with some of the governments, organizations that are supporting. I'm sure Poland is like investing a ton in its ecosystem. France is investing a ton in its ecosystem.
France would be, I would think they are leading, right? Like for recent investments from Microsoft. And,
exactly. Yeah. So they are actually having a fund that is in Europe. So 4 of us are in Switzerland, 1 is in Sweden. Is appealing to them, and also actually being a little bit outside the very noisy and sometimes herdy ecosystem of San Francisco is also allows us a little bit of a fresh look at things. So so I think like we're trying to take what's good in the location in Europe, but not limit ourselves explicitly.
Like I completely agree with you. We have lots of talent, but I guess it's partly to the way we believe in ourselves as well, the way we get support from from the society and also initiatives. There's not so many role models compared to what Silicon Valley has. I watched the other day Scott Galloway's also keynote. I watched yours as well, but we will talk about it in a second. And he showed like this graph, which I don't know if it was like 10 or 5 times less investment is like given to Europe compared to just US. So I'm just like wondering what needs to change for people to start more companies, to believe in themselves, and to keep going and have more optimism in doing things.
Yeah, I think you touched it, right? I think like role model people and companies play a key role. I saw it like in Israel, right? Because I was like back in the 90s over there, and I think like the big moment for Israel was ICQ acquisition for nearly $500 million. Everyone was, oh wow, this is possible, and that's what actually kicked off really the big boom. And I think also you go through a maturity phase where first because it's so much easier to work with companies in your own market, and it's like it seems like scary to go to the US, but you must. You must think big, you must not think locally. And I think that does go through some stage. And for Israel, it happened, right? Like I think Israel at the first also was like that. And then very quickly, it was either late 90s or early 2000s, the moment the company opened, usually engineering was in Israel and product and sales were in the US. Afterwards, product moved to Israel, but the business was always US first. And I think that's also like, an angle that we are trying to bring to our companies, move as quickly as possible to the main market. But I think like you can see what Mistral did in France, right? Completely changed, including the government's view on things. The moment there is a role model, they're saying, oh, wow, you can actually go big. Entrepreneurs follow. So I do think there is, some kind of a culture thing and a role model thing. But definitely we're seeing a vibrant and growing ecosystem of startups in Europe. Yeah, so I'm very excited.
Yeah, I guess, if you work the code, if you find, if you have like the best, factors, so the talent, great product, execution, and you are able to find those, there's such a big pool in Europe which you can tap into, so you don't have so much competition from US.
Yeah. And by the way, there are some really good other VCs in Europe that we're partnering with, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So I think there is a ton of opportunity now with, especially with AI,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm sure we'll see the growth and the development of that system.
So so do you specialize in any in applications within this, or is there anything which excites you particularly?
Um, yes. So initially we didn't limit ourselves. We are definitely trying to focus on what you call AI deep tech. I think the barrier for applications for AI has really is really high now, and because that the models and the horizontal orchestration and other APIs layer on top of them are definitely are setting such a high bar that is commoditized. Capturing sustainable value in the application layer, I think, is not trivial, especially if you're extrapolating 2, 3, 4 years away. Because at the moment there are still a lot of challenges, right? You need to work hard to make things work, but I don't think it's inherent to the technology. I think it's more of a symptom of raw technology at that very early stage. So
Yes.
a lot of the hacks in RAG and whatever, but I think that in 2 to 3 years, actually, it will be out of the box. So we are looking usually in deep tech, and that exists in different places. I think there is a place for foundational model. I wouldn't invest in a large language model now, or even maybe in the main modalities. But music is still interesting modality. There is definitely more and more startups that are creating foundational models in specific domains. Whether that's engineering or medical or others, right? So it's not about the language, but actually representing that space. That's one interesting. Definitely, like the security side of AI is an interesting one. There are some tools that are interesting, but still, some of these areas are crowded. Two spaces that excite me, and I would love us to actually specialize and develop our muscle even more. One is AI for sciences.
Mm-hmm.
So I think, definitely biology and
Yeah.
protein folding is the one that is most in the
Drug
news, especially
development,
with
that kind of thing.
Alpha 3. But like you think, AI for sciences, how can you use Gen AI and AI to do better science? So there is, like, in chemistry, in biology, in materials, and others. I think over there the defensibility and barrier are a bit more clear. It's a bit less crowded than the mainstream of where Gen AI is. um, and it does requirement a certain set of scientific expertise, which I think we have a good baseline to build. And I think it's a fascinating space. So that's one area. I think robotics is also very interesting. I think that
Mm-hmm.
that space is also becoming crowded, but I think it's like also so big and has the potential that
Yeah.
again. And we're always finding interesting companies working on super interesting. How do you solve issues related to expected water shortage, right? Like, in how do you relate it to climate? And then there is a bunch of derivatives. So yeah, so trying to go off the beaten path of Gen AI for the enterprise, which it is actually my expertise, and
Yeah.
we're definitely looking at it. Yeah, and more on places where defensibility and barrier to entry.
I read somewhere that you are also interested in, was it AI augmented food? What does it
Yes,
mean?
yes. So, I think there are multiple very hard problems. Climate, water, and food, of course, is also a problem. And actually, I think it manifests. A lot of people don't have enough food or eating actually not the best food.
Maybe it will change with Ozempic in a small way.
Yeah. And unlike others, I actually think that this is relatively an easier problem to solve, because I think there are so many um, big inefficiencies in the system of food that you actually, with AI, it's a so I think it's from the beginning. One is growing food. So, I've been traveling in emerging markets. I've actually recently been in an NGO, volunteered in an NGO with a friend in Tanzania. Uh, some of these places are really like, you could grow anything because
Yeah.
they're like, yeah, on the equator and stuff like that,
Yeah.
that it's really good. But they are actually growing poorly nutrient and actually very low margin stuff just because that's the only thing they know how to grow. And some
Yeah.
of these NGOs are trying to teach them, actually, instead of, growing maize, grow a vanilla or something, it actually can make you 100x more money. So everything else can improve, or maybe grow nuts that are much more nutrient than than sugar carbs, and but they don't have the knowledge, right? So actually, I think with technology you can actually transfer that knowledge and expertise. This is just one example. The second one is about definitely transportation and distribution. um, Right, even at Google, we did some work with some of the largest consumer, right? Like the Migros and the co-ops and of the world. They have like huge waste because they don't want you to go to the competitor on Friday or Saturday, but they like throw stuff on Sunday. So how can you actually optimize and plan that such that actually you won't lose consumers, but you also won't waste food. Again, we actually with some AI products that Google clouded, I think they got to something like 30% saving. That's huge. And then at the end, which I think is also super easy, on the consumer level, we are so unsophisticated in the way that we eat and prepare food. All of the people I know pretty much know how to cook somehow like 5 dishes.
And they just keep
And they
circulating
cook, they're
around.
doing the same. They do it
Yes.
in one way that they know. And and it's so easy to do even on these dishes, like small fixes on on some of the ingredients or how you make it. Like if you take a chef, you don't even need a a 3-star Michelin chef, and you put it next to someone for a week. And it just gives them a few simple tips of, instead of this thing, buy this thing, here is how you can vary. Here is actually how you can cook it a little bit better. Here is how you can personalize it. So these are things that with AI are very easy to build, and I think can have a huge impact on our daily diet. So again, it's like very don't need to do the impossible and the crazy, just a little bit better, more varied, more balanced, a system that actually knows you, remembers what you ate, knows actually what's good and bad, knows some good cooking tips that will make you will actually eat healthier, better food.
Yeah.
So that was kind of exciting. Then I found a super cool partner. She actually brought the name. Her name is Erica. She's a super smart designer. She was also like me a few years ago, excited about AI, but she said, why isn't AI working on all the senses? So she said, and one of the things she said, hey, wasn't working, for example, on taste. Can we actually kind of maybe digitally print, chocolate or other stuff and food? So she started a little bit of that. So what we're trying to do here is kind of a research center and a physical research center that will bring in industry and academia and entrepreneurs and others to kind of push the envelope on some of these ideas and provide prototypes and research and things. Right? So because it seems such an important problem, and yet we are such in a basic way, right? People's cooking did not change much in the last 20, 30 years compared to a lot of stuff. Yeah. So that was a very long speech, but I think it's such
No.
it's a
It's
great
very
topic.
fascinating. I also feel so like my other venture, actually, apart from working in AI in tech, I have a retail e-commerce store, and we sell Japanese knives. So obviously I love to cook as well. And I find it fascinating as well how people, I guess, the way we our work-life balance doesn't really work, and there are lots of companies which benefit, which take advantage of people's lack of time, and offer those prepackaged things.
Yeah.
Some of the companies are doing the really cool
Yeah.
way such as I don't know if you've heard of Gusto. They are huge.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
they
There
are
is Gusto, there is fresh food. Yeah.
yes. So I saw the other day how they manage offering. I think it's like, I don't know now how many, but 100 plus different combinations of food which you can select for each week, and everything is robotized, everything is automated, and just people don't even think like, oh, just randomly select, okay, today I will eat this, I just don't like, I don't know, chicken or whatever.
No.
So it doesn't demand people to think about those choices, right? But in a way, I find it sad because this is your time to, maybe it's in a way of meditative, right? Like it's time to reconnect with your close ones when you cook at home, and you know what you are eating, and it's nice. It's like a survival kind of thing. If you are lost in the woods, at least you know what you can combine to survive and eat.
Yeah, I
With
love
fire.
gardening and food, and I believe
Yes.
that it allows us to connect to ourselves,
Yeah.
and understand and think about it. Yeah, I know a lot of people are saying, "Hey, the next generation will not cook." Although my daughter
I find it sad.
is actually
Yeah.
amazing. Yeah. So yeah, I think like it's great that there are like these companies. I do think that it's actually a great skill and a great activity.
Yes.
And to your point, actually, it's a social activity. And I think it's actually something that I would love actually to use AI to augment and improve people rather than replace. Yeah. So yeah, I love go on.
No, go on. Sorry.
No, I'm saying, other than food, generally I love this kind of adjacent uses of AI. The other thing I do is AI and art.
Yes.
Which also very passionate about. Yeah.
So what do you do in this area?
So yeah, this is like
Don't tell me like Bitcoin and blockchain and
No,
all the
no.
NFTs.
No, I actually, I got excited about it, like, a decade ago, because I always loved art. Actually, my sister is an artist. One of my daughters is studying art. But both of my daughters are very good at it. I always loved creating. When AI came out, I felt, oh, wow, finally I have kind of a brush that I know how to use. I felt I can actually, create with it. I always felt that programming is kind of a creative activity, and with AI, it blew my mind. And I have a very good friend that is a very big media art collector, especially the video art. And I was talking to him, hey, how do we make, and this was long before Midjourney and all of this, 10 years ago. I told him, hey, how can we make AI art a thing and a mainstream thing? And he told me, back in the days that, hey, the biggest challenge with video art, for example, was if you want really good people to do certain art, you need to make sure that the big collectors are collecting it, the big galleries are buying it, the big museums are displaying it, or otherwise they don't have a market. So he said, video art struggled with that. Let's start with having that conversation and introducing them, so that will create the motivation. Funny enough, I tried to talk to some people in the contemporary art scene, and contemporary is a misleading word in my opinion, based on my experience. Immediately they told me, no, art is for humans, by humans, no machines, nothing. So I told them, okay, I get it, forget it. AI is not artificial intelligence. Imagine that aliens come from another planet and they say, hey, we are doing art. We would love to do art with you. We'd love to understand your art. We'd love to explain about art. Will you tell them, no, art is for humans and by humans? So I don't have aliens, but AI is as closer to aliens that we have today. It's a form of intelligence. It's different than ours. It has its own limitations, mostly because our own limitations. So I actually bought here a few years, years ago, alienintelligence.com, because, or .org, because everything started these days with a domain name. And that actually opened people a little bit more. And then, I kind of gave up. I did a few AI art projects myself. But then last year again, I felt that the time is ripe again. And really now, like, AI, it became a household. It's not anymore kind of in the corridor of experts. Everybody now knows AI. And art seems to be like, kind of still left behind, because if you ask people what's AI art, exactly, people will say NFT or Midjourney, which I think is completely diminishing. And in the AI art world, it's hardly ever there. Most of the works that I've seen, I didn't think they are great. There are some interesting artists, definitely, but there is a lot of superficial. So what we wanted to do is really, the goal is to deepen the dialogue and especially connect the two worlds of AI, because I feel that in the AI world, there are like amazing creative scientists and technical people that often when I read a paper, when I see some of the example, I'm saying, wow, if that person just had an artistic intent, this is actually a really good artwork that actually stops you and makes you think. And on the other hand, I do feel that there are artists that are interested in AI, but they lack the technical and depth to do really interesting.
They just want to focus on creating
work, right? Then it all diminishes to very aesthetic works and nothing that is deeply interesting. So we created this association, and we managed actually to get quite a few of leading museums and others into it. And what we're doing actually is a competition. So we thought, okay, let's start with a competition to open it for people to submit AI art works. And the AI can be a subject, it can be a tool and collaborator, it can be a creator, it can be a performer. So yeah, we're very soon to launch that, and we hope that, and the plan is then to take these works and present them in the partner galleries, to organize workshops and events when we have, artists and AI experts talking, because I think there is valid hard questions, but you need an informed dialogue to progress anything. So yeah, that's very exciting, and I think, again, you are asking, is that NFT? No, there is a lot of interesting. Definitely, people are using AI to create music. People are actually using an AI as a choreographer. So people are basically saying it, oh, you please create choreography for this topic or for this music, and then they actually go and do it. People are using robots for generating stuff. I myself used, a bunch of different tools. So it's actually, very broad, and I think could be very interesting. And it's a shame that humanity is missing on it because of kind of conservative contemporaries.
I would love to. I'm trying by myself to learn electric guitar, and I find it I'm very hopeful that there will be tools which will, guide you through those things. If you, for example, are living in a more remote place and you can't really have one-on-one sessions with a teacher, I think this is great to have, at least to put some foundations for people to get immersed with art, with music, and just create from there.
Yeah, 100%. I think to teach people stuff, right, you need to do two things, right? You need to scale expertise, and that expertise needs to be patient and clear and trustworthy. And I think AI actually, so we need to fix a little bit the trustworthy. Or I think it's not, we're getting there, and there is a lot of tricks to do it. And and I think to your point, that scale expertise, whether to all of us, if now you can have it's kind of taking the idea of having a world-class expert teach you stuff, but also to your point, and maybe more important, you can actually take expert scientists, doctors, agriculture experts, to countries where that expertise is lacking. Yeah.
So 2 points on that. One of them is I know whom to connect you with, and I don't know if you've heard of her or you are connected already. Suhair Khan.
Of course, Suhair. I know her from Google.
Okay. So yes, I interviewed her, and I'm meant to meet with her because she's also in London.
Yeah, she's awesome.
She's hosting those cool
crazy
cool
in the best way. Yeah.
Yes, and yeah,
Yeah.
she's great. So we had a chat, I think, like a month
Oh,
ago,
cool.
something.
Small world.
Okay, so
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
of course, people, great minds
Yeah.
attract each other.
Yeah. She's a favorite of mine.
So yeah, so she does the same thing. She wants to facilitate those
Yeah.
conversations, which
Yeah.
I think it's so needed.
Yeah.
Yeah. And the other thing is, since you've been working for many years when you started with Google on those assistants, how do you find it right now? With what OpenAI recently released with the 4.0 4.0 or 4.0 and the whole assistance or tutoring, and like I guess you saw lots of demos. They made so many collaborations with one of the like biggest like celebrities. And how do you find this? Is it more helpful, or do you see any risks of how people are going to use like those kind of assistants? Are they going to go like maybe using only shortcuts and not really learning and testing their own capabilities?
So it was a very cool demo for OpenAI. I saw it and I said, "Oh, finally it works!" Right? And we started it, 10 years ago or so, and it was a little bit too early from the technology perspective, but a lot of the ideas are actually still valid. I'm a huge optimist when it comes to technology. You know, Fire is still very dangerous and can be used in very dangerous ways. Wheels are super dangerous, and most of the bad stuff, are actually because of the invention of the wheel. Electricity, the jet engine, pencils, books, TVs, all of them can be used and are used, for also bad goals, and they allow, kind of, if you have a really bad idea, and that means it allows you to scale this kind. Yeah, but like I think their positive contribution to society, far outweighs this kind of potentials. And when I look at some of the biggest risk and challenges that we have as a society, we touched food, we kind of mentioned, water, we mentioned climate, all of these actually cannot be solved unless we do technological advantages, and we touched, about like, smaller things, right? Like, a better diet, health, scaling this expertise. So I am a huge fan of technological progress. And I think that, yeah, sure, we need to do it in a responsible way. But the control should be on the application, not on the technology. Yes, specifically with assistants, what excited me back then still excites me now, and multiple things. First, natural language is the most robust and the most natural interface.
Yeah.
Right? Like, I can express very complex desires, ideas, or points, and everyone knows how to do it, right? Like, it crosses, you don't need to, to be techie, ever since you are like 2 years old and until you die, it doesn't matter where you live, everybody on this planet actually knows how to express complex ideas and desires in language. So when you create a technology that actually can understand and can assist you based on that interface, you are actually leveling the field in a huge way. And of course, it's not just natural language, but it's also like kind of pointing, right? Like finally also image recognition and video recognition also reached that kind of state. And I think that combination is a killer use case, because certain stuff are super good, with kind of speech, other stuff, are super good visual. Everybody, like, when people like try to explain that point, is like when you go to a restaurant, choosing from a menu, when the waiter comes and tells you about the dishes of the day, after 3 dishes you lose him.
Yeah, you
So
forget.
right, so on a menu you easily go through 50 or 100 dishes. So actually, so you want that rich ability to vision, but when you want to express, some of these restaurants that have tablets, that's actually very annoying, because when I know what I want or I have a question, language is so precise and robust, right? So you want the preciseness and robustness of language, and on the other hand, you want the richness of visual recognition. So I think that's like one aspect. But the other aspect that like super excites me is when you think about the mobile revolution, right? So we kind of had the internet and the and digital revolution when we had computers and we could connect to the internet, and the world changed in a big way, right? So suddenly you don't need to go to a physical location and you can consume information and services from home. And then mobile came, and when you think about mobile, it actually it's not such a big difference. What did they do? You kind of take the big computer, you cut the cables, you make it slightly smaller so it fits in your pocket, and you can go around with it. And they added very simple, right? There is a camera, there is a microphone, there is the gyroscope, so it knows the position, and there is an accelerometer and a GPS. That's it. That's the controls that you have in a mobile, and that completely changed the world, right? It became the most addictive thing that
Yes.
everyone uses 24/7 for hours. Completely.
It wasn't the tech. It was the way the tech inside.
Yeah,
the
but
software was
it
designed.
enabled. But it
Yes,
enabled,
yes.
right? So you suddenly started, all of these verbs that we didn't use, right? To like, to message, to post, all of these, to check in, to navigate, to email, all of these verbs that we are doing all the way, weren't able. And then I'm saying, wow, now that we can actually take intelligence and connect it to any device, you don't need to take it out of a pocket. Everything around you in theory can actually understand you and talk to you back. And now you can actually connect it to any device, to a car, to your wearables, to medical devices, to toys, to scientific devices, right? So these are so I think the opportunity and richness of services and new verbs and new ways of doing things is going to be, in my opinion, orders of magnitude more than this kind of crude device with small screen that you need to so I think the type of new classes of use cases that now finally, we are kind of a historic day, because what OpenAI did, it's not just the understanding, it's the latency. Finally,
Yes.
you have a latency for
Thanks
voice
to
and
NVIDIA, I
video.
guess.
Yes, for everyone.
Yeah.
Right? There is a whole chain here.
Yeah.
But that it's sub 200 milliseconds, which is kind of a comfortable latency for us. I think it just opens up that modality, and I think soon we will see glasses and other wearables and things.
But the reviews, opinions about goggles and the wearable, especially Apple Apple invention, are not so positive. People are saying that it's not really comfortable. It's making you dizzy, and it's preventing you from socializing with people.
So I have a ton of respect for people that are doing the early steps and getting the fire. Having done it before multiple times in my career, I know that the step that finally nails it is actually thanks to those people that actually walked the desert. So I think it's not the issue. I think a lot of the ideas are valid, but in order actually to take a valid idea and and create a great product out of it, you need maturity of technology and maturity of understanding, right? And again, the example that all of us, of course, understand is that mobile phones started to be quite common, in 1995. But it didn't really happen until the iPhone came, right? 2007 or whenever that right. So a decade until someone figured out the form factor that will actually be great. And I think this time, yeah. So I actually a big believer in kind of a glass or something like, like unfeeling, something on the eye, on the bone of the ear, and something that senses, so you don't need to speak out loud. You kind of, right, you can think about what you're saying, that there is already that technology that work. And I'm pretty sure, right? Like, when I grew up like with TVs that were 21-inch and black and white and giant, and you need to go to find the antenna on the roof and fix it, right?
Yeah,
Like,
yeah, yeah.
and people at the time said, oh, because of TV, all the social order will fall down because
No,
people will
I
not
think
talk
it
to
was
each
the
other.
opposite. One person in the village had a
Yeah,
TV and everybody was coming in.
coming. Yeah, that was also actually, yeah, there was
Yeah.
and
You can
remote
still see
control.
it in some countries, like in developing countries, right?
Yeah, we had the stick as a remote control. I'm pretty sure that if we time travel, people will be shocked. What? How can you really know your people if you don't light fire with them, or if you don't hunt with them, or if you don't, cross the ocean on a boat with them, or if you don't ride horses with them, right? Like, I'm pretty sure that every generation has its own kind of preconceived what is a must and the right way of socializing, and you kind of move on. And and yeah, maybe it's sad or whatnot, but like it's very interesting. Why another good friend of mine is the chief product officer of Roblox, and he had like this great insight. He said that when he's asking his son what is he doing when the son is playing video games, he's not saying I'm playing video game. He's saying I'm hanging out with my
My
friends.
friends. Hmm.
Right? Like, so it's like, and I see it with my kids as well. So I think like there is an evolution here, and I agree that there is something in the physical world. I don't think it's going to disappear, but there is this awesome website. I think it's like something like the Ultimate Pessimist or something. It shows actually newspapers and articles like
Oh,
every
from the
time
past. Yes,
from the past,
yes, yes, I saw it.
elevators are so dangerous. Bicycles will, women will become horrible because of bicycles. It's all like, so yeah.
And
So I'm
now
like, again,
we laugh at it.
yeah.
No, but you can't deny the data that now the biggest epidemic actually is loneliness especially among young boys, and partly it is to losing those social skills because they are staying at home. And I think it was also in Scott Galloway's keynote that obviously the demand for porn and for websites like Character AI, those virtual girlfriends,
Yeah.
is spiking.
Yeah, I wonder what's the cause and what's the phenomena here. Is it because of that, or does it actually show some deeper truth about us? Because no one is forcing you to use the technology,
But it's
and I
addictive.
agree.
You just said that.
I, I I think again, right, like when we need also to be careful how we use addictive, right? Like, some of it is addictive kind of, addictive with parentheses around it, some of it is really addictive. I do strongly believe, right? Like, there was this Christian PM from Google that said, hey, that like actually that the technology companies should stop optimizing on more time on their apps and actually, for well-being. And I think we're seeing, start to that. So I 100% believe that, again, the same way, the fact that we can generate, more food doesn't mean we need to be obese. And so I think, like, again, the fact that we can generate super fun, useful, helpful technology doesn't mean we should, like, sit all day in a closed room and use it. And I think, like, as a society,
Yeah.
we need to think, and in my opinion, part of it is, educating parents and educating children to make sure that we are actually intelligent, informed consumers of this. So I think that's the best. I don't believe in laws and others. I think, like, really at the end, it's about education, that parents, teachers, and other role models or people that shape behavior and children will learn, what's the impact, what's the importance of doing physical activity, what's the importance of eating correctly, what's the importance of social activity, what are the risks and values in everything, right? There is always value and risk in anything we do, right? There is like, it's physical activity and sports. There is also risk if you do too much. Like, I think everything needs to be at the right dose and in the right way. And I think like technology is that too. And it's just like moving so fast that the education and the educators often are just left behind. But I strongly believe that the key thing is actually making the education system much more relevant to modern days. I think it's so important that people understand the body and how it works, the brain and how it works, the world and how it works. And once you understand that, you actually understand also how technology, interferes and interacts with the world, and with the with your body. And I just, again, this like a little bit of my own rant that I wish kids would have learned much more advanced physics and biology on really understanding you as a machine and the machines and technology around you and the world as a machine in a sense. And I think that would actually contribute the most to a better world rather than, leaving it to a few people or trying to force rules, on an uninformed audience.
No, of course, but as you see, history shows that people don't really. Sometimes they don't have no limits. They indulge in certain things, and especially kids. It takes years to train them. It takes years. Obviously, it should start from very early age, but you have so many different factors and so much. Social influence, and it's not only your kid, it's the whole.
So I have a theory about that. I think things need to be measurable and simple, and then they work. I used to have this kind of, back in the, rule of a seatbelt. A seatbelt is like, and it saves your life, and you get like a $1,000 fine if you don't put it on. Yet it took years and years to educate people to put the seatbelt. So I generally say, something needs to be, as simple as a seatbelt if you want to have any chance of changing behavior.
But that's regulated by law, right?
Yeah, but again, the regulation is regulated. Most of us don't care about regulated outside Switzerland, right? It does. The fact that there is some, most people don't even know the laws. But like, some examples that I take is like, for example, diet. So diets or watching, your weight used to be crazy thing or no one did until Weight Watchers came with this kind of very simple points. And then you actually saw that go to the masses because people don't need to understand everything. Okay, they understood that thing and now they could actually, watch their weight. Only crazy people used to go to gyms and stuff until I think the first one was kind of the 10,000 challenge by Fitbit. But then like once you have like, more and more things that measure and show you green, red and whatnot.
But it's gamification. Again, it's addictive in a way.
No, yes, but so I think that actually well-being is not there yet. I don't think anyone is yet measuring well-being in a good way, reports on it. So you don't have a feedback loop. Diabetes, for example, the moment you had the continuous measuring of diabetes and that thing, I've talked to you because I was like actually working in the medical space. Finally they understood how their behavior impacts that, and people are very good with feedback loop. And I actually think that thanks to AI that can actually now watch you and listen to you and can actually tell you, or tell you about yourself or about your kids or about your partner or about your teammates. Hey, actually, you're talking less or talking more, you're shouting less or shouting more, you're using more negative or more, or more positive words, you're actually, in different rooms, right? So like very simple observations, I think, can actually give you a not only of how good is your well-being, but I actually strongly believe that it can predict like, teenagers' problem of depression, other divorces, getting fired. And I actually believe that, I was talking before, about like some of these apps that will become. I believe that applications that help us monitor our well-being and improve it, and in a very simple way, will actually be a result of this technology. And I actually think that once that's there, and you have just like a clock that is showing you the time, there is a clock that is showing you how are you doing in your relationship or how your children are doing. And I think that that will allow us, like, these quick feedback loops that, hey, actually, hey, we notice you're doing too much games, or we notice that actually you're talking less after you talk the games. And I think it will be much more simple, data-driven, intuitive solutions to this, rather than like, either make it regulated or very theoretical. So again, I'm a very big believer that this technology that understands how people interact actually allows to understand people more, and allows to people understand, how many times you had miscommunication, in your personal professional life that screw everything. Like, so I think like this kind of tools will help that. Yeah.
Definitely. And maybe reminding you to send flowers to your wife for the for the anniversary. Okay, but so what do you think about like those longevity not freaks, but let's say pseudoscientists and those who are using themselves as a guinea pig?
Yeah. So pseudoscience, I'm not a fan of any pseudoscience, right? Science need to be...
No, I called it that way because there's lots of criticism about it, but obviously, because lots of things are being done purely on marketing level, but...
So I think, again, charlatan, if it's a charlatan, if especially it's a charlatan that knows he's a charlatan, so I think like, we should call that out, and again, usually they're just like taking advantage of people that are uneducated and misinformed and selling dreams, right? That was always a business of selling dreams to people. And then I think there is like, people that early pioneers and are doing really work. And to your point, they are willing to put themselves as a guinea pig in order to progress science. And of course, we know that that's also, we've always seen that, a lot of early days of radiation, there is like, we know the consequences. And I think we should all be grateful and think,
someone sacrificed themselves,
how to support. And I think maybe these are some places, maybe that robotics or again, AI on sciences can help. So you can actually simulate or do these very complex, because the problem is, right, like, the human body is so complex. Each cell is so complex because of all the many chemical interaction, and then the cell interaction between themselves, and then the whole control. So like, it's just impossible if you want to check something, how it impacts. It's really, really hard to do it in a controlled app. But if you can actually create, either based on what NVIDIA is kind of saying, hey, a simulated human, or you can actually do more and more complex analysis of chemistry and others, right? Like, how do you slow aging of cells via chemical interactions? That's great. Whether you want longevity or not, I think it's a personal choice. Some people are saying, hey, it's hard enough to plan my life for 70 years. I think everyone at least wants to have better quality of life. Yeah. Funny enough, when you talk with a lot of this longevity, they're saying, hey, the top factors are, one, you need to have a more muscle mass. Right? Like, that's actually the biggest contribution to longevity. And the second one is cardio. Right, so I think like, my recommendation again is like, actually, go to the gym, and that actually until longevity is ready, you're already getting, most of what it gives. But yeah, I think it's, definitely there is a market for it. And I think it's like, for itself, it's a good thing. Mm-hmm. I think like everything, again, it needs to be done in the right way. And definitely, again, anything that is science needs to be in a scientific way. And as a consumer, you should not buy something that is supposed to be science from a non-scientist, right? Like, you go to a doctor that is a doctor, and you buy a computer from a computer company, right? I'm surprised sometimes that this is not common sense.
The biggest problem of society right now is obesity, right? And that's why, as I mentioned before, Ozempic is crazily popular right now, especially in US. And I I just fear that people, humanity, like to go on those, strive to find those shortcuts without minding the long-term consequences or not learning the lesson.
I do not believe in delegating that to governments. Yes, governments should do it at their role, but I don't believe in the completely delegating. And this is, again, I think that the solution is like actually that people should understand. It's funny enough, right? Like most people don't understand what's happening when I'm eating. What's happening to my cells? Why are cells getting old? Why is cardio important? What does it do? Why is actually, where is cholesterol playing in my body? Where is like, sugars and other I, and I don't, you don't need to get like, to PhD level, but I actually think that with a little bit of effort, you actually get to it. And then you can actually ask informed question. Okay, you are saying that this solves. Can you explain to me how? How exactly that is? Does it interact in the system that actually helps me? And I think and people are spending. It's not like we don't go to school, right? Like we spend a ton of money on school and a ton of time on school. The two most kind of important resources that we have. Anywhere between 10 to 15 years, right? That's kind
Yeah,
of the
but maybe
average.
it's taught in a way that it's not interesting.
But like, yes, exactly. But I think like we're like I think like the only thing I would come and say, like, people need to be much more opinionated on the quality and the type of schooling that they and their kids are getting. I think that's the biggest issue, and that's where I would put like most of the energy of society's ranting. I think if we fix that, the money and time is there. Just like fix the content. And I think that will solve a lot. Again, we got again, it's like, yeah, sure, uneducated people just don't know what to ask, and then they tend to believe, and if you're convincing enough, you win them. But it's very tricky, it's very hard to trick people when they know the domain.
Yes, but it's also the question of access to education.
Yes, but I strongly believe that, if you were podcasting me 200 years ago, and I would tell you in some countries, 100 years ago in some country today, and I would tell you, I actually think that everyone should know how to read and write, or I actually think that everyone should know, basic mathematics. You would tell me you're crazy.
Crazy.
What do you mean, like, women will know
No.
mathematics? In some countries, still today, yeah, you are
Yes.
crazy to think that.
Yes,
And I think
yes.
everyone, the basic education is orders of magnitude what it was before. So I actually don't think it's impossible or hard or anything. Yeah, it's a matter of doing. Yeah. So I'm a believer. Yeah, I think like, and I actually I think that technology will help. I see how my kids are learning, and how I thought, with Brilliant or with all
Heavy
these
books.
other, right? So like, it's so easy. And then some of the examples that we've seen yesterday, from OpenAI and Google is about this kind of personalized teaching and teaching it in the way, you don't need to have any more pre-written textbooks. You can actually ask the assistant, explain to me, teach me these science with a basketball example, show me a picture, oh, I don't understand this, right? So actually, again, looking at this technology, I think it's actually solving the problem of how can we do personalized education for everyone, right? Because scaling teachers is very, very hard, but scaling teaching assistants, yeah. So I think, like, again, going back, the same pattern, this AI and technology has the potential to solve its own problem of educating people how to use it correctly.
Yeah. For this, at this stage, I guess maybe this is the best we can do for ourselves. But I don't know, thinking futuristic terms, do you think we will ever get to the stage where we will be uploading our knowledge?
I think, yeah, I think, people are, there's all this discussion of, augmented humans. We're already augmented, right? I'm augmented by my car. I'm not walking to places.
Smartphone as well.
I'm augmented by my phone. I'm augmented by my pen and pencil. I'm augmented by my glasses. I'm augmented by my earphones. I'm augmented by my computer. Will we make the augmentation, closer and closer? And will we use it as a memory? I think yes. And I think we're already, at the moment, the fact that you have a mobile phone that already has access to all the internet, and you ask that the delta from that, from you yourself knowing it, doesn't matter if the phone is in your hand, inside your hand. Doesn't, honestly, I don't think it's a huge difference.
Just feels more secure that you can turn it off.
But it's accessible, right? But you can also turn off here as well, right? Like,
That's
people,
trickier.
So yes, I think like, we are actually much closer to that, right? Again, if you're thinking what it took you as a child to know things and to find out things versus now, right?
No, but I was like, you learn as a human, you learn by doing, by experimenting, by failing, and just retrying. And I don't know, I just can't comprehend how it would make us feel. Like, would we lose motivation? Would we find more enjoyment and time to do other things? I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know.
No,
I think
just too far. Let's focus on what the present technology can do. Yeah. Okay. So let's end up on the very our conversation felt very optimistic, but let's add to it. So what do you wish for Future Fund for the next few years to achieve?
So the reason I started it, because I really wanted to contribute for this kind of technology for good. I really want to be part of supporting good new tech and help direct it and help actually great founders build great companies that will impact our future. That was like, kind of my biggest motivation, is that I believe, yes, there is, potential, and I can help it at least in some way. So I would love that, like, in like, I don't know, 3 years, if we've been like, kind of key contributors to a bunch of really good technology and products coming out of Europe and other places, and where we can actually say, hey, these are changing people's life for good. And I would love that we'll be so successful that we can actually have some pro bono to invest ourselves in stuff that actually, to support organizations and other with technology. So actually even more proactively, do that. And basically, use technology to build a better future. And I just want to say, sometimes we look at technology as something that is foreign or artificial or whatnot. But, when I look at a bird building a nest or a beaver building a dam, I don't think that's artificial or outside, right? Beaver is part of nature, and what it builds is also part of nature. We are also part of nature. The technology that we build is also part of nature. It's made of material that are, elements in nature. So I think like all we're doing is like basically just like, kind of adding more complexity to nature, but it's still nature, and we're kind of improving nature in a sense by taking sand and turning it into the GPUs. So I hope like we take much more sand and make more out of it in a way that creates a better place.
The more silicon. Okay. I really wish that for you and your partners, and hopefully few years time we will get back together and you will tell me all about those successes you're working on. Thank you, Yariv, and have a lovely day. Oops.
You too. Thank you.
I just lost it.
That was super fun. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.